Good night.
Yeah, welcome folks. This is South Emergency Institutions Committee. It's Wednesday, April 29th. It's our 3 o'clock meeting. We are working again on this 183. We've got new language that is a reflection of what we talked about yesterday in terms of the feasibility plan for the Agency of Human Services back to us with the feasibility plan on how to do with the forensic facility. But before we go there, we have Connor that has some questions.
So I was up in Human Services listening to the testimony today, and something occurred to me just on the original draft of the bill. This is essentially a public safety bill, right? Like, I know we want to treat people, we want to get them competent to stand trial, but it's a public safety bill that's targeting folks we think are the highest risk based on their charge. But if there's one thing I've learned in this committee, and I thought I was listening upstairs and hearing something similar, is what you're charged of or even sentenced in some cases doesn't dictate how dangerous you're going to be in a facility. In fact, the example we always give is kind of crass, but you murder your husband, you got rid of your problem, and you might not be the most dangerous person then. So if we're doing a public safety bill, why are we basing someone's propensity to cause violence in the public on their charge and not their clinical diagnosis of whether a doctor thinks they're a risk of being violent in public? Is it really a public safety bill, or is it just we're doing the easiest thing we can and it passes the straight face test and we can tell the public we're looking out for public safety? Because it's not the best thing you can do for public safety. Some of these charges are not the most dangerous people. Some of the other folks who are waiting for their competency evaluations are far more dangerous, right? So why are we basing it on that? And I thought that's where this committee might touch it a little bit, because we always go to that example of how dangerous they are,
That's a good point. That is.
So I just wanted to bring that up in the larger conversation.
That is a good point. That is a good point. Maybe you want to bring that up upstairs.
Yeah, I feel like I was asking too many questions to begin with.
Yeah, we go for
If I may editorialize, I agree with everything you said, but there's also the punitive part. We don't like to think about that, but until the law is changed and it's no longer a life sentence, that sentence needs to be carried out unless it's changed. And so if they have a life sentence that's pending, maybe we should change the law so that they're not detained. But you hear what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying like release the people who have been charged, right? Like I'm
that's
saying,
what you're saying is
No,
whether
that's
they're
not-
really.
no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this facility is not accounting for people who might be more dangerous than the
I
people we're
agree.
talking about.
100%.
And to clarify, these are people who have been charged
They're not
Yeah.
guilty yet.
that if convicted, and it's that point, would face a life sentence. But we don't get to a conviction until they've had a trial. We don't get to a trial until they're competent to stand trial. So,
But we're holding others in a similar fashion.
but they have competency. They understand why they're waiting for a sentence.
That's a real difference. I mean,
I understand.
you and I being in there can understand why we're being yelled, but someone that's not competent doesn't. It's okay. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Katie McGlynn, Office of Legislative Counsel. What you have up on the screen is language reflecting sort of the conversation that you've had the past few days about wanting to put a feasibility plan together. So this is standalone language at this point, and the concept being that if and when you get S-193 from House Judiciary, that there would be an amendment, there would have to be changes to the underlying language currently in that draft, but this is a section that would be added. So this requires that by January of this coming year, the Secretary of Human Services is to submit a feasibility plan for the development and operation of a forensic facility, and this would go to 7 different committees. The plan shall address the following: the proposed location of a forensic facility, which shall be independent from a correctional facility, and if on the same grounds of a correctional facility, shall be separated by sight and sound. Second, it shall address the proposed design plans for a forensic facility that allows for the ability to separate residents by sex or gender in clinical need. Third, the number of beds within a forensic facility. Fourth, the entity or entities responsible for operating and providing services in a forensic facility, which shall not be the Department of Corrections. Fourth, the timeline for constructing a standalone forensic facility or fitting up an existing standalone facility to operate as a forensic facility. Fifth, the estimated cost of constructing or fitting up a forensic facility. Six, the proposed staffing and clinical services available at a forensic facility, including competency restoration services. Seven, whether any opportunities exist for out-of-state placement of the forensic facility population and clinically appropriate programming while development of a forensic facility in Vermont is pending. And any recommendations for legislative action to effectuate the development of a therapeutic trauma-informed forensic facility. So this hopefully reflects your conversation. It borrows some of the language that came over from the House. Sorry, kind of frog. That came over from the House. I sort of alerted you to where the Senate Health and Welfare and Senate Institutions Amendment was. So some of that language is built into this. But this is where it is right now.
I think this AD incorporated decisions from yesterday, it's in the language, it's currently in S 193. I need to meld this is the plan, the agency needs to come back with next year.
And there was a conversation about having an interim status update, going to Joint Justice Oversight. And that would be August of 26 and October. Question would be, how do those status updates fit with the written interim report that's currently in the bill? Do you want both? I mean, that's a policy choice, but just thinking about the interplay between those two pieces.
Yeah, the interim report. Which one? That's the one. Is that the one for January 15th?
No, there is an October 1 report, or is that section 7? So October 1, from multiple departments.
That's talking about drafts, draft rules.
That's one thing, but it also asks for the status and anticipated timeline for the adoption of rules. Forensic facility planning, including the specific proposed location, space considerations, design elements, initial staffing considerations, including required qualifications, anticipated timeline for development.
Where's all of that?
That's in section 7 of the bill.
And that's staying.
Well, that's my question. Do you, if you adopt this language with the feasibility plan, and one of the asks was that there be a joint justice update in August and October, do you also want this section 7 written report? Is that duplicative? Or do you want to have this coming in later? Do you want this coming in January? Well, in January, you're getting your feasibility plan.
Well, the new thing that was written up, thank you, seems a lot better than this thing over here. Right? So don't we get rid of section 7?
Section 7.
I mean, seems like we go with this.
Yeah, if we have this and I want to keep their feet to the fire. To do this, and one way of doing that is have them report on how far along on the planning process and what direction you're looking at based on this language here. Have them come before Joint Justice Committee at their August and maybe November meeting.
August, November.
August meeting in November.
Okay.
You're
And then
saying,
you get the plan in January.
that's what I was gonna say, but
Then-
why did we ask for October 1st on this
That
one?
came from the bill. That's the bill.
That's not-
that came
right.
over.
Yeah.
It's changing everything.
So
Right.
I'm just asking, do you want both?
I don't think we need those.
So you're, okay, so we're
We need
striking
one
that
or
out.
the other.
Okay,
One or the other. So
I'm
just
just-
one with the committee.
I'm just wondering if we need a merge though, if there's,
Right.
I'm just trying to get it in front of me and I don't have.
Section 7, it depends what draft you're on, but it's.
Are you on
interim
Four
report.
15?
no, but this language hasn't been amended since it's come from the House.
Okay,
So I think any version you look at is probably safe.
So what the interim report that came over from the S-193 from the Senate is the status and anticipated timeline for the adoption of rules.
So that's out. 'cause
That's
it's
our
not rulemaking.
Mhm.
Forensic facility planning, including the specific proposed location, space consideration, design elements
We got that covered.
necessary to support provision of therapeutic services, security at the proposed location, and timeline for any necessary fit. They also had to take initial staffing consideration, anticipated staffing levels, required qualifications, and potential contracting needs.
That's not.
That's not in
Yeah,
there,
right,
which
that
may need to
we
be in there.
Right,
And the anticipated timeline for the development of a forensic facility, including preliminary cost estimates and initial
That's in there.
operation. So the only thing we need
So the staff,
is number 3.
You also don't have any security plan.
that's true too. Because we're
Oh.
divesting from DOC right now, so that sort of.
but we have to cover that, Troy, because there is in our number one first ask is that. And if on the same grounds a correctional facility shall be separated by sight and sound. Aren't we assuming that they get the perimeter? And then are you talking about the security inside the actual building?
Yes, inside the
Copy.
front, so.
All right, got it, thank you.
And, right, so does that look like a site security sort of position or a CO position? I'm leaning more towards the
It's
former.
not security or staff security.
Well, you want like,
Yeah,
yeah, you don't want DOC in there.
I do not.
I don't either.
Right, so.
I don't think any of us do.
So, but we still need it to be a secure facility.
Right.
So defining who's providing that security is important. Especially since we've removed DOC out of this. We still have to define security.
So that would be in the plan, feasibility plan.
Yeah.
To define the security.
Yeah, I think you got it
Inside the
right.
facility and outside. So
Yes.
Okay. I think that would maybe be its own
maybe
subdivision.
a thorn, is that what you said?
No, it would be its own.
Oh, it's.
It would be its own subdivision, sorry.
It sounded like a.
Katie's side.
Okay, so are folks comfortable with this, with the changes that are proposed, and then we eliminate section 7. So while we're there, we are also looking at, while we're talking about the interim report, section 5, which is the rulemaking. Are we saying as a committee to delete that section?
I would.
I think it's premature.
There's also a proposal to delete 4A. Section 4A. So this is an annual report on what's happening at the forensic facility. It might be something you want at some point, but without knowing exactly what the forensic facility is going to look at, you might want to wait on that piece also.
Great.
Okay.
So, okay, what could be very helpful, Katie, is if you could put together what we have right now, which is this and changes. And the decisions we made on those sections to delete. Yeah. And we've got some outstanding decisions that we need to make. One is, and I don't know if we want to get into it today, I don't know what happened with John, is he coming back?
He can come back. Feel free.
anytime before 4. So I'd like to have him come back fairly soon, and I know you may need to be freed up. We have to make the decision when folks are released, because they will be. Because House Judiciary is working on that piece, folks will be released. The way the bill is drafted now, it's DOC would monitor them in the community. We have not really vetted. So I want to keep that in the bill so that we don't lose that. We can spend some time really working on that. We'll have to get DOC coming in to talk about that piece, how they envision. So I think we need to know that before we say no to it.
Sure.
Okay. The other piece is what the Senate Alliance piece that put in was the definition of forensic facility and how this works with our feasibility.
Yeah, I was thinking I might just go in and work on that
And our.
bring back some language.
And also our definition of forensic facility.
Yeah, which depends on everybody else's decisions. The monitoring piece, House Judiciary's latest draft had the secretary being responsible for that, just so you know. I am happy to make changes to the feasibility plan that you discussed. I know you want to see the whole package together.
Well, not their stuff,
Um,
but it's too
some
much
of the
info.
decisions that they're making, will influence what you are seeing.
So maybe premature.
That's what I'm thinking. For example, the forensic facility definition, we can't finalize until we know what other decisions are being made. And then that section 4, I can start working in subsection B and start making those changes. But it looks like House Judiciary is still working on a few small changes, so I'm a little hesitant to,
But you can do.
I could maybe just pull in what they're doing.
4B.
I could, yep,
Yeah, start on section 4B,
okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah. and then Kevin.
One thing I really like about the section X that you just gave us
Mhm.
is under item 1. It's very explicit, which shall be independent from a correctional facility. I'm glad that that's in there. As we substitute secretary for AHS into everywhere that corrections DOC was in the original bill.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm not doing it. One of the things that has been concerning for me is that if we give it to the secretary, what's preventing her from just handing it off to DOC? Do we want language at those moments in the bill that mirrors shall be independent from a correctional facility, shall be separate from the DOC, or shall not include the DOC? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear what you're
And
saying.
it's talking to their.
Utilizing.
Yeah.
I am wondering if that subsection B can be used in that way. The problem is that's permanent statute. You're asking for a plan back. Can I think about it?
Can you talk to their?
Yeah, really where I think it probably belongs is either in the definition, but it feels like a little bit of a strange thing to say in the definition. This shall be operated by the secretary, but the secretary can't hand it off.
Yeah.
Maybe there could just be a line, like one standalone subdivision somewhere that just,
We do an intent, such, but it doesn't get in statute, but we do an intent.
yes, you could do an intent section.
Entry into the bill,
Yeah,
That would be good.
is our intent.
yep.
I'm not understanding. We need a definition of forensic.
Facility. It's in the bill, it's like, this 193, there's a definition of forensic facility.
Yeah. So we don't like the definition that's in there.
We're gonna build on it a little bit, we gotta coordinate a little bit with this. And we already have a previous definition of forensic facility that we looked at yesterday, that we're using as a template that will be included in the definition that came up with the bill.
It's interesting. That we would come up with a definition of that, but that's okay. I wait to see how that happens.
Well, we already have a definition in the bill. So it came
I
over,
guess that's why I'm confused. If we have the definition, but we don't like the definition.
we're gonna modify it a little.
Or the conversation in the committee was that there's a definition in a prior bill, 2025 bill, that the committee seems to like better, of forensic facility. So we're gonna pull in the next draft, pull that definition, but it has to be modified to fit the circumstances that you're currently talking about with this iteration of the proposal.
Yes, I'm sorry for the education, but isn't there a definition of forensic at the federal level? If there's money involved with this, isn't it already defined?
Now,
Someplace?
forensic facility in the state of Vermont.
Okay, so we're gonna make up our own forensic in Vermont. That may be different than Iowa, maybe different than Maine.
Because
We're
we're
gonna come up
probably
with.
housing different folks.
Okay,
The general concept of what it is, and we're going to be more specific for our purposes.
Anything else before we set Katie free? It'll be easier once we get the bill and can really see what they've done. And it might be good at some point for us to even see, today's Wednesday. I don't know if Eric would have some time to come in and just quickly walk us through what some of their drafts, or it's too early.
I am sensing that it was too early. There was a comment made that there were some outstanding questions that House Judiciary was still going to need work on. So I think you might hear from Eric and then, things might shift, so.
But we want to keep that. See, because we don't know when we physically get the bill, it will be 2 weeks. We only got a couple more weeks.
So we'll have some of this, we will have some of the sections hopefully at least close to finalized. We could do the legislative intent. We can do this feasibility. I can see what I can do with that subsection B. And then we will wait on the forensic facility definition until we know what other committees are deciding.
It's
Okay.
never good to have a bill at the end of the session.
Hmm?
It's never good to have a bill at the end of the session with full committees working on it.
It's
Yes, it
but
does.
I'm more concerned of conference. I'm more concerned about this. Yes, in the Senate. That's why some of this we really want to keep intact. It's gonna be important. So maybe we can avoid a conference committee. And maybe it's gonna take some conversations pretty soon with two chairs over there. That might help lay the groundwork to talk to Martin about that.
So who's starting the conversation?
It would be chair of judiciary and chair of human services. Those were the two that we were working. A lot of the definition of forensic facility came from Senator Lyons and Senator Harrison.
Well, they didn't actually work on the definition of forensic facility from Senate Judiciary.
But I thought they did some of the work on 4B.
They did the work on 4B.
Yeah.
Yeah, those clinical parameters and the interim reports and the rulemaking. But the definition itself came from the Judiciary Committee.
4B is what I was thinking.
Okay, yep, and that's right.
I think if we keep that pretty intact,
Okay,
it might be easier.
I'll try to retain as much of that as I can and also try to, I don't know, meld it with your concept that you have.
You are,
I would like to avoid a conference committee, which means conversations with our counterparts over there.
Point well taken.
Anything else for Katie before we get John in here?
just a big thank you for. all you
Yeah,
do.
thank you so much, Katie.
Thank
You
you.
captured it really well. Yeah, thanks.
It's only gonna, it gets muddy and then it clears up and it'll get muddy again. That'll clear up. First thing you know, it'll all come together. We've got to have faith. It will come together.
Enjoy your afternoon.
Better us than you, right? Thank you, Katie.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
Oh, look at. Boom.
Eddie appears.
Here.
Certainly.
Okay, we're gonna shift gears here. Katie warmed up that seat for you, John.
Sufficiently warm in here already.
Yes. Those are open.
The luxury of a corner room. It's very cool.
In no way.
So we left off, we're back on the capital bill, folks.
Great.
And we left off on page 5.
Four maybe.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry.
Couple with us.
Page 4.
Yeah.
Sorry, page 4. Any changes? All yours, John, you can introduce yourself for the record, pick up where you left off.
So I'm still John Gray with the Office of Legislative Counsel.
We're still, absence, corrections and institutions.
Glad to hear that. We've been slightly disturbed at this room and something else.
Just be ways me.
Oh, God.
You would
I
have
would
been
have been in
here.
there.
Uh-huh.
You would have
And our
been,
room used to be 33.
which was a clause.
So you could have run back and forth. across the
Would have been
hall.
perfect.
So we could have all met in the hallway. Anyway,
Okay.
it's all yours.
Perfect. I will.
Now
Great
we
job.
working off of April 4.
That is correct. 4.2, 4:05 PM. Got it up on the screen. We're on page 4. We are jumping into the fourth instance of amendment, the grant programs. You've already talked about this with Scott, but you can see pretty easily the updates there. Typically, these are evenly distributed across the grant programs, right? And now you have an increase of 100K for each of the historic preservation grant program and the historic forest preservation grant program. The fifth instance of amendment, this is a section that was not touched by you guys. The natural resources section had remained untouched. I have a few things to say about this one.
Please do.
So yeah, so section 9 is 100K appropriation FY27 to ANR for technical support to municipalities to design and implement stormwater utilities. Few things to flag here. As you're going to see in the policy sections, there's some stormwater utilities language, policy language, which I will attempt to explain, although I'm not the drafter of those sections, but I think it's
Did direct it.
Michael Grady, but I think it's not especially hard to explain. But just for the full picture, you're going to want to talk to him.
So first, this 100,000 is bonded down.
That's exactly where I was going to head. So I perhaps mistakenly understood there to be a known commitment to this as a capital expenditure, meaning that whatever was proposed was a capital expenditure to help municipalities. I am, based on conversations I've had since this left their committee, I am less clear that this would be a capital expenditure, in which case you have bonded dollars for a non-capital expenditure, which is not something that we do. So,
Full support.
yep. So just something to note, if this was, sometimes design docs and things are a kind of capital expenditure, right? But if it truly is outside the scope of design, construction, classic capital expenditures, there's a question as to what to do with this. So just wanted to flag that. And obviously this is part of some, it's tied to that policy language. It's not explicitly directed at what that policy language allows, but you can just tell that there was appetite from the Senate Institutions Committee to include measures related to stormwater utilities. And you're seeing that across both the line item here and the policy sections.
So are you aware of any testimony that they've taken on stormwater utilities to implement a municipal stormwater utility?
I was not part of that just because these were not my sections, but I have heard things I cannot say since then that give me a different view as to what's happening.
Oh, boy.
All to say that, part of what is unfortunate about my walk through the sections is all the questions that I will raise or that you guys will raise are going to be directed toward the senators and not really toward me. There are questions, why did you do this? Yeah.
That's what we have a conference.
Yep. The sixth instance, this one's going to be simple to understand. It looks big. It's your reallocations and reversions, but there's only one change here. I'm sure that Scott talked about this, and I also kind of hinted at it earlier. It is subdivision 19 on page 6. Taking from the 2021 capital bill, $868,850 from the Women's Correctional Facilities Replacement. I'll just remind you that earlier today, when we went through the Section 2 appropriations, or maybe the Section 3 appropriations, we talked about how a portion of this was dedicated to the boiler replacement to bring that in addition to the cash up to 1.7 million. And then the balance left over was dedicated to essentially an expanded line item of this form. So this is Women's Correctional Facilities Replacement, and the 598,850 in Section 3 went to repairs, renovations, additions, replacement at the Chittenden Regional Center and other facilities serving the incarcerated women's population, which was the discussion that was happening when I left the room. So that's where that 868 was dedicated. I normally don't like to talk in that way because all the dollars are fungible and they all go to the bottom line. But that's how those made it into, in the last instance, the Senate Institutions Report.
Did you folks in repo look at this 868? It's from,
We didn't look at any of the money that has been gathering for the corrections facility. None of it is at the point of mandatory.
but this would be from next year.
Next year.
Well, how did Commerce and Community Development get this?
Sorry, you're looking below the line item. This was an appropriation. There you go. This went to BGS. If it is helpful, there was a robust discussion about how reallocations work in Senate institutions, some discussions of the permissive and mandatory clawback measures. And there initially was a view that you shouldn't take any monies from projects that need to accumulate huge figures to be pursued, right? Like 100 million. Of course, that's not the way it works. You're mandated to reinvestigate your projects at least every 5 years. You can rededicate them to the exact same project. That's how you would accumulate funds over time. So there was some discussion as to how to approach this. And I think the place that landed in part because of a political compromise was a recognition that you can basically, and I know that this committee does this, refresh the money in advance of the GovRec deciding where the reallocations themselves would go. So if you grab it a year early and it's unused funding, you can basically restart the clock for that money and claim it. And so it wouldn't be subject to clawback in the following year. So that's some of the thinking that went into this is, well, this isn't happening anyway, rededicate it to essentially the same purpose and then refresh the money. But if you expand the purpose, there's of course the question whether any of it will go to the original purpose, if all of it goes to maintenance and repairs, or it goes to other facilities.
Well, they did get an extra 1.3 million. Cash.
Mhm.
So it's only 600,000 less. And you're going 600 still. They pulled 800 out of that 1.3 million. So it's still 600 to the book.
I mean, my understanding was that they pulled everything that remained from this particular appropriation.
Right, but they didn't touch 1 we put in 1.3.
Elsewhere.
They didn't touch that. So what's accumulated for replacing the women's facility is about 600,000 more
Yes.
than what we started the session.
Yeah, the appetite was to keep sending money to this project, but a concern for how to deal with maintenance and repairs on a more urgent basis. That was the thinking.
They didn't pull the cash that we put in.
No.
They went to the oldest bonded money that would be up for reallocation next session.
Yeah, there was, when I said robust discussion, there was a period in which no reallocation, they weren't going to reallocate anything because it was perceived to be somehow wrong to take money that is part of a long-term project and rededicate it to that purpose. But that's just how the capital works. I don't know how else to describe that.
I mean, in a way, it's convoluted, but it makes sense.
Yes, and I mean, that's what I.
Still 600,000 to the.
That's what I tried to offer was that I get from like a high level perspective, really long-term planning for projects where you can't even proceed on them until you have a huge sum of money. That you would like to have a bank that you can effectively store that in. But the reallocation process doesn't mandate that that banking process doesn't happen. It just ensures a regular check-in.
And we have to be careful with bonded money, how much time
Right.
to keep it without expending it.
Exactly. Like you have these authorized but unissued bonds and they're going to go, right. So,
So even with pulling the 868, there's still about uh 15 million, 14.
right. There's the 2023 big appropriations, which are roughly 15, yeah.
I mean, they're even more, because, yeah, I mean, you've got 13 million, 1.5,
Exactly.
so that's 14.5, but you're at 15 million. That's right,
Yep, it's a big one.
which is what we figured to begin with, when we put the 1.3.
So that is the sole reallocation they did, and that is how in section 1 they have a larger number than left this committee and then left the House. The remainder of the reallocation section is exactly as left this committee, including the technical updates from reallocate to revert. So I think we jump next to the cash section. I'm not going to hit too much here because I know you've gone over with Scott, but I will try to call it a couple of pieces. So page 11, they have the 1 million for 3-acre parcel stormwater compliance. Let's see. On page 12, 2.7 million for the door control upgrades. It's a change from the House position. The boiler replacement, they have 1 million, which in addition to the 700K in bonded brings you to that 1.7 figure. Earlier, I talked about the struck language for the sprinkler system upgrades at the Northern State Correctional Facility. This is subdivision 11 on page 12. They did not actually reduce the 500K. They just converted that bonded dollars into cash. You can see the 500K line item for the maintenance and renovations at the Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility. That's an update both to the dollar figure and the line item that had been your replacement piece.
Can I just have one question? How come this doesn't say or any other facility service?
Yeah.
Population?
So this is in part a sequencing thing. The way that it was traveling at the same time as the budget, cash was locked up before the bonded pieces we were expected for the capital bill to be voted out in advance of or at the same time as the budget, and that did not happen. So this line item was fixed as the budget went to the floor. Conceivably, had they been working in tandem, it would have had a similar line item fall out. But the reason it's fixed at just CRCF is because of the sequencing of the budget.
How does that impact potential spending if they want to spend it on a facility that's serving the women's population, but is not CRCF?
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to use this 500K. They'd have to stick with the bonded dollars for that purpose.
If the language here is updated.
Correct, and it's not in the budget.
It's not, they have an amendment yesterday on the floor.
Not that I am aware of, though I'm not always told every.
It's in the Senate journal.
I can check. I would be surprised if it is, given the amount that I did receive updates on the budget, little things that were happening. So I think that someone would have told me, but the budget has moved in strange ways. There was a cleanup to the budget because I think there was a technical amendment for the budget because the initial cash sections duplicated a line item. Obviously, it had been copied and pasted twice. So that was cleaned up
Let's see.
from today.
Yeah, 1723 on the Senate calendar.
Give me just a second, and I will try to look as well.
It talks about the cash.
Yeah, it could be this cleanup.
It didn't clean that up.
So it's not the cleanup piece that you're describing, but
Yeah, but the amendment that Brooks is offering today, it's on the cash fund.
mhm.
It just picked up the language that was in this appropriation, this capital bill. Because the amendment they had before,
Duplicated.
well, it was a little different, because it didn't have the sprinkler system.
Exactly. The thing that had happened there is they accidentally listed the boiler replacement twice
Right.
in place of the sprinkler system, right?
So that's what this
That's the
amendment
cleanup.
corrects.
Exactly.
So it keeps
Exactly.
$500,000 for the maintenance and renovations at the Chittenden facility, and that's it. Keeps the language as we see it there.
Exactly. And just for everyone else's benefit, that's subdivision O right here.
So that's the amendment on the floor today.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think they had changed this line item. I think they had just cleaned up the mistake in the prior draft.
Here's over there.
I'm very sympathetic as to why the duplication happened. There's a lot
There was a lot of
Going on.
moving pieces.
a lot of moving pieces. Yeah. Let's see, other pieces to hit. Yeah, there's one big one I did want to hit on. Will be obvious, bottom of page 13. Wi-Fi. You guys had 3 million to DOC to work with ADS to install Wi-Fi in the state correctional facilities.
They forgot a zero down.
They reduced that by 2.75 million, so you're down to 250K. And I would just encourage you to talk to them, because I don't know how else to describe the way that this number was arrived at. I'll leave them to describe it.
I mean, say-
Imagine.
Yeah.
Did we ask for an estimate this week? I
Did ask for this.
thought they were coming back this week or something.
Supposed to.
All right, on page 14, we're now jumping to policy sections, the 8th instance of amendment. This one, okay, just to remind you of what section 13 is, this is the Little River State Park lease. If it is helpful, I can find you guys' report and call out what this does, but the first line of that section says, you know, notwithstanding 29 VSA 16 in FY 27, the commissioner Forest Parks and Rec is authorized to enter into a lease provided certain conditions are met, and then it lists the conditions that have to be met. Before explaining what the word change is, although it's obvious from just reading it, the thing that led to this proposal was a fear from Senate institutions that the conditions that were included and required to be met for that authority to exist were not sufficiently specific. And basically what they wanted was to see the lease before any authority to enter into it existed. So they did not want to extend authority to enter into a lease. I suggest that they just strike the section then, because that's what the section is for. I didn't like that. So you ended up with the commissioner is authorized to negotiate a lease, which I would just note, they can do that whether you extend them the authority or not. We have people talk to people all the time. That's how they bring you plans. So if you stick with what the Senate did, I don't think you need this section at all. You just need to say, Forest Parks and Recs, come back next year with a plan, with a lease, you know, with terms that you can achieve, and then can grant the authority to do so. I more sympathetically, because perhaps I'm being too harsh, the practical function that this has for the Senate committee, who is at this point running out of time, is that it preserved the issue for conference committee. And the thinking was that perhaps they could think more about just additional conditions they would want included in this section if they felt dissatisfied with those that are there. I don't know what else you're going to find to add to it. Perhaps there's something at a certain point, it's not negotiation if you just dictated what the terms are, right? So,
We dictated what.
and you gave lots of
The
conditions.
concern was what was the fee?
Exactly, which is not something you would, so I know where they're coming from. I know where you guys are coming from. You know, one resolution is just they come back next year and you can see what the plan is, and then you can extend the authority to enter into it. It will be a delayed process though, unless you do it on a one-off bill, right? Where it's just, yeah, which could be done. So
Did they reach out to Michael McGrady at all? Do you know?
on this piece, I don't know that he ever made it in to,
I recommend it big time
Yeah.
to for some parks, and monuments and
I
it's
s-
great.
I certainly talked with Mike about this, and let him know what was happening. So he is aware.
Work for the conference.
So, practically what they did is they preserved this section for conference committee as the effect.
Oh, boy.
The ninth instance of amendment, this one's simple to understand. Again, I can pull up the underlying act if it's useful, but in the 2023 capital bill, you guys extended authority for BGS to sell 110 State Street, just outside. And this removes that authority to sell that property. I do not know what the attachment is to this property, but I think you may have some,
That whole property right now is in
My
the
issues.
midst of negotiations with the.
exactly, that's what I was hearing.
Capital Plat, the whole Capitol complex. Because what's happening right now in the Capitol complex, everything is temporary. People think this is up and running.
No.
All the electrical systems for our buildings in the Capitol is temporary. It's not permanent, because I know they wanted to add some certain things.
I was gonna say exactly that. There were discussions around EV charging stations. Commissioner Manoli came in and explained that they might have to be ripped out immediately, depending on what's happening in the floodplain, so that it didn't especially make sense to dedicate funds for those purposes. Also presumably part of why you're getting a reallocation of funds from EV charging stations. So
Because everything is temporary, it's all temporary systems, all your mechanical systems, your electrical systems, all temporary for every one of those buildings. It's not just the ones who are unoccupied, it's the pavilion, it's 133 State Street, it's not so much 120. But all these other buildings that are occupied now, they're all in temporary systems.
and that is my vague recollection of why repealing this may not even have any, I mean, it has a subset effect, it removes the authority to do so, but my understanding is that it was tied up anyway, right? So,
Well, I was gonna ask if you knew why they were repealing it, but I guess it's tied up, so.
I think she likes the building and wants to use it for something. But what your use is gonna be is gonna be
Constrained.
tied into
Exactly.
FEMA.
Right.
Because FEMA, for repairing everything, the Capitol complex is over 200 million. And we don't know what the state share of that's going to be. And it will be a construction zone for 2 years. This is all gonna be under construction. For at least a year to 2 years. Once we settle with FEMA, which you're thinking that will happen sometime this summer. So this whole area, this whole Capitol complex where it flooded is gonna be all torn up.
so simple to understand what the legal mechanic does, but questions as to policy, which would be, again, for the senators. Okay, I previewed this temp instance earlier. I said that you had that 100K for technical support to municipalities to implement stormwater design. These are the sections that Mike O'Grady drafted, but I think that I can give you a simple kind of layperson's explanation of what these do. I'm just going to read the non-underlined language so you can see what's there. And then I'll read the underline afterwards. So in Title 24, any municipality may adopt bylaws to implement stormwater management and control consistent with the program developed by the Secretary of Natural Resources. So to Title 10, municipalities shall not charge an impervious surface fee or other stormwater fee under this subdivision or under other provisions of this title on property regulated under the required agricultural practices for discharges of ag waste or ag non-point source pollution. The fear that I believe that this language is meant to address is there are these concepts of regional stormwater utilities. And I think that this language is being added to address kind of a future fear that the regional stormwater utilities would operate to the exclusion of these municipalities' ability to control stormwater management, right? So currently municipalities can adopt bylaws to implement that stormwater management and control. That's what you see in existing law, non-underlined language. And the new language is the creation of a regional stormwater utility under statute or rules of A&R shall not prevent a muni from regulating stormwater under this subdivision, including adoption by the municipality of a bylaw establishing a municipal stormwater utility. So this is preserving the ability for municipalities to establish municipal stormwater utilities, even if a regional stormwater utility is created under statute or rules of A&R. I can't say much more than that. You'll want to talk to Mike O'Grady. But these are addressing, I take it to be a fear that future regional stormwater utilities could somehow come at the expense of the ability for municipalities to regulate.
Yeah.
Section 19 says the exact same thing. Creation of a regional stormwater utility under statute or rules of the ANR shall not prevent a muni from regulating stormwater under this chapter. So presumably it's a separate chapter. So it says the same thing, but pulls in a chapter, including adoption by the municipality of a bylaw authorizing the operation of a municipal stormwater utility that establishes an assessment or equivalent residential unit or impervious surface.
So establishes an assessment on a.
Equivalent.
fee.
Yeah,
So they can establish a fee on residential units. Could be a home, could be a business, commercial business. Or impervious surface. Well, how do you put it'd be a fee on a parking lot?
yeah, I'm guessing, again, this is outside of my bailiwick. I just think the orientation that's useful to know today is I think this is addressing a fear that regional utilities would come at the expense of the ability for municipalities to regulate. So it's trying to preserve that ability.
It's to regulate stormwater discharge. It's within the Clean Water Act. And I would wonder if they get any money right now from the Clean Water Fund.
That's it. Same effective date, so that is unchanged.
This stormwater, there'll be a lot of conversation, and we'll have to reach out to our policy committee on this. I think there's a lot of layers to this, and so some preliminary conversations that have occurred. Well,
No,
how,
you said in terms of some kind of
the
conversation.
conversations that have occurred, I've let the chair of natural resources know. We're gonna have to reach out to A&R. Reached out to
Again, Mike, yeah,
Michael O'Grady, talked to A&R, talked to the league. So there's not a simple issue.
yeah, it's interesting because obviously I have limited experience of the capital bill. My understanding is that, typically it's dollars, discussions about movements of, and obviously there are those discussions to be had, but here you have some relatively significant policy changes as well, so it will be a different kind of conference committee, I think that's maybe not.
In the old days, we used to have a lot policy. We did one capital bill, didn't they, with Act 250?
I'm glad that no one asked me to do
That was
that.
in 2003, 2004 session. Did away with it. And one
Deliberately? It was meant to?
Yeah, yeah.
How long was that bill?
It just had a repeal.
One word repeal.
I guess you could repeal the chapter.
It was on transportation.
Oh, I see.
Bob Wood was chair.
That's why they sent me over here.
It got a little
Whip 'em
crazy.
into shape.
It got a little crazy in 03, 04. That
Yeah.
one got a little, there was a lot of policy in that committee on that bill.
Yeah.
Awful lot of policy, but that was one. Forget that. That's when the wildlife also.
Wow.
That's when the wildlife.
This is every dozen.
It's a fish out in the hallway.
Yeah, those are great.
Not why.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with crab.
Little butter. salt, pepper.
I grew up with
Yeah,
and that's fine.
does not sound too shabby. Do you guys need anything more from me for now?
No, John. it was
Your
good to see you.
undying commitment is.
Thank you so much.
Thank
sure.
you.
More to come.
Yeah,
And I'll also say, more things I can't reveal, but who is to say whether what I just walked through will be the final form?
Yes.
Yeah.
it's true. It's still on
We
approach.
know it won't be.
I think the plan is approach so voted out tomorrow.
I think that's right. I think that's right.
That's why it'll be on notice Friday.
Yeah.
And be up for action on the floor Tuesday next week. I did mention to one of the members of Zen institutions, can you suspend rules and do second, third reading in one day to get it over here? And session's winding down.
They understand that.
So,
Don't worry, session will continue to exist.
Yes,
If I have anything to do with it.
yes, sir.
warm weather, doors open, windows open. You can get out of here.
You enjoy pain, huh?
I sure do. Had to learn that skill.
Thank you, John. We're
Thank
gonna
you.
be
Sure.
spending a lot of time with you in conference.
Soon, yes,
Along with the you, Bill, they'll need you. and- Yeah. Bill.
potentially 9:33 at. Yep. I will have lots of conference committee present.
We believe in you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have some colleagues who've never done conference committee online.
Wow.
You know,
You did it.
it's different, yeah, it's just different depending on what you work in. I mean, we did one this year, quickest one ever.
It's a whole different.
Yeah, it is quite different.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Okay, what, tomorrow, we have, what's going on tomorrow? We have a field trip to the Historical Society. We have to be there by 9:30.
Great,
It's Barry.
great.
We should meet downstairs around 9. Figure out who's driving.
Happy to drive.
Bye,
I'll
Dan.
go with you.
I'll be. Meet down.
Mary's got a favorite spot. Rear
Thank you, John.
driver's
Yes.
side.
Yes.
John.
So that's.
How do you get there to Barry?
You're gonna get, oh, shush, you can go anywhere you want to Barry. It's in downtown Barry, it used to be the school, elementary
It's
school.
right up there on the hill.
Where's that town?
I didn't see the gesture.
It wasn't raised,
I
the
couldn't-
thought was there.
I
What
could
do we have
figure out
here?
what-
It's the granite capital of the world, I'll have you know.
Yeah, nothing. God.
What do people wanna do tomorrow afternoon? And Friday?
Well, we have,
House floor.
Do you have a suggestion?
one from Chicago Beyond, psychiatrist.
Chicago.
Yeah, you're gonna be, that's yours, but that's after the
That
floor.
will be after the floor.
How long will that take you, like an hour?
Yeah.
Celebrate his
And it's
leaving.
about corrections specifically?
Yes.
Okay. So you two are gonna be Friday meeting. I'm just
No,
concerned
ma'am, thank you.
about tomorrow afternoon. What are we gonna do tomorrow afternoon?
Why is it's gonna be like day?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
Without you,
Would,
how can we function?
it's just
pretty light tomorrow.
not to throw things out.
Get the wetlands, is the wetlands bill coming up with Bowden's and all? It's on notice. Oh, maybe we could have Steve, see if you could have Steve come in and talk about staff. BSC. Is Bowden amendment and that coming up?
Yeah.
tomorrow? It's on the calendar.
I
not
don't-
Bowden's
I
amendment.
saw that.
I don't think so.
It's on notice. Bill's on notice.
I don't think so, but I can get back to you.
Because that will take time,
Yeah.
Operations, right? Is that the-
didn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
You said something about that day.
But it was on notice today. So
Yes.
did it go today?
Yeah, that's right.
I know he told me, but. Speak for.
That's 223, right? Yeah. I'll find out, you know.
Because if that's coming up tomorrow, that will
Then
take
that'll
time.
be a
But let's see if
thing.
we can reach out to BSC. and see if they- And we could also talk with them how they see the forensic facility with correctional staff.
Yeah.
And their field folks for monitoring, just so we get some testimony on that, because we really have. We have a gut feeling about it, but we haven't focused on.
Kind of talk from the psych tech perspective too, as well as the CO.
The what? Psych tech?
So
They represent the psych techs up at the state hospital, so, yeah, so that's different
So
perspective.
it could be more than just staffing the DOC. It could also be the staffing, I mean, the forensic. And their experience with the psych techs up at the state hospital.
Okay,
For what it's worth, it looks like it's supposed to rain pretty much all day tomorrow.
That's why we're not doing the dam. We want to schedule that Waterbury Dam.
Next Thursday.
It's next Thursday. Is there any other field trip that folks are interested in? We want to do the Wrightsville Dam.
Right, will be interesting.
See if we can-
Waterbury Dam in the morning on Thursday, the seventh? Yes.
Yeah. Could we do the Wrightsville Dam like Wednesday sometime? Possible?
Yeah.
Or when, yeah,
You're wonderful.
or maybe even Tuesday afternoon, Wrightsville Dam, if you don't have anything
Okay.
going on. Because Tuesday afternoon, you know, we know we're gonna be in committee.
Yes, it upstairs.
So we might have our turn.
Hey, do you want
Yes.
Brian to report on how upstairs was? If there is anything to report.
Did you also, yes.
That was to talk about. That might be good.
So we gotta dressed down and then get redressed
For the dam,
for the house floor.
for the dam, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't,
So you're gonna wear hip boots and bring a big shovel.
Yeah.
Maybe get in there.
Scuba gear, my goggles, my flippers.
Going under for a dog.
Down.
yeah, we should find out. We're gonna be outside for most of that, right? Yeah, so
Yes.
we should be clear in terms of what we will have to change. Say, go whisper.
So I didn't hear what's happening Friday.
Friday, we have got
Chicago Beyond.
Chicago Beyond, and it's a research group.
Yeah, changing the culture in prisons in general. And they had started some work with the previous commissioner.
What time is that?
Maybe after the floor.
Post for
I'd like to get a updated schedule. So Brian, what happened upstairs? Anything interesting? Aren't you glad you're in this committee?
Let me get my notes. Yes, yes, I am, Chair. Thank you very much. A lot of time was spent talking about people with developmental and intellectual disabilities and the fact that they don't belong in a forensic facility. I think the committee upstairs, because it's their lane, is really worried about these folks being misplaced and getting lost and not getting the treatment that they should. And I think the answer is, I mean, we already have some of these folks in our correctional facilities, but when we're talking forensics, we're talking the intersection with crime and with needing to gather evidence. And so, in my opinion, their fears are largely misplaced because we're not really going to be looking at that population much.
Because we're not now. Are they aware that there are folks with DD that are incarcerated now? They must be.
I talked about it a very brief bit unofficially, but I don't get the impression that they have gone deep on that note.
I thought the four committees chairs were going to meet and kind of,
Tomorrow.
okay, because that needs to be brought up. I think we're all on different pages.
Quite. Well, and it's fine in terms of, you know, we know the most about one thing, they know the most about the other, but yes. Oh, and I guess at some point Commissioner Murad suggested in his testimony from this morning, and maybe Connor's already said this, I don't know, that this forensic facility within a correctional facility would be in Springfield were it to happen. I mean, I don't think that's a surprise, but
You
yeah.
said that in here.
Did he? Oh,
He
okay.
said Alpha Bravo specifically.
And then when we asked about,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and then when we asked about definition of forensic facility.
Yes.
That was in S193, I asked him, so what part of the facility would you see defined as forensic facility? He said, well, it'd be the whole facility.
Yes.
I didn't get the sense that Human Services necessarily doesn't know we're not talking a new facility, you know? Or maybe they do, but it seemed a little unclear.
So the document we got yesterday. This document here, though, at the time, it didn't include the definition of forensic facility, but this is a document we got yesterday. Summary of where we are positioned, that we don't agree that should be in DOC. We recommend facility operated by AHS or jointly by the departments. And we recommend the development of a facility in community-based setting or in a separate facility on the grounds of a correctional facility. And in the interim about out-of-state placement. And that we are recommending a feasibility plan by January, proposed location and size, responsibility for operating and providing services, and a timeline and estimated cost. I sent this to Representative Black, Representative Wood, Representative Long, Representative Wood said she liked this. So that's what I sent yesterday morning to let those other three know what we would do.
Are you gonna share what Katie put together as a draft with them tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah, the thing is, it's not gonna be a complete draft.
But it moves that along a little bit.
Yeah, so that they know what's going on. It's all coordinating and talking with each other at this point. It really is. I mean, we're all in our own lane. And we gotta meld that together, and we will. It will come together. Sean?
So you sent that to Martin too,
Yes.
and to
Teresa and to Alyssa.
Alyssa. Did Martin and Alyssa get back to you on it? Okay.
Based on the invocation this morning, I probably shouldn't ask another question, but if we had the perfect facility in place right now, we would identify the individuals that would be in it right now, right?
We would,
Yeah, if we had the perfect facility in place right now, could we identify the people that should be in that perfect facility right now physically? Are there
Judiciary.
5, 7 people? Do we know?
Judiciary's working on it.
Oh, so we don't know who these 5 or 7 people are current. We don't have a list of 5 or 7 people that would be in the facility.
Which somebody knows. We don't.
Okay, so the point is that if we have that list, where are they? And
We are in
what
Springfield.
what service are they in certain?
Well,
Springfield?
3 of them were in Springfield because that's what Marissa,
I heard-
and
Yeah, I heard.
said
that-
to
that
us.
there were
She
at
said she had
least
3
two.
people
She
that
thought-
need
and they're
to.
not getting much service.
Right.
So right now, they're not getting the service wherever they are, and we don't know where.
No.
So it's still in my mind that we're just
Oh,
out there.
she was in the state for a long time, and then she ended up.
Yeah, I don't think they're getting much help. Maybe they are, I don't know.
I don't feature this changing that much.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll just say it again to sum up upstairs, you know, that they're concerned about this wrong population of intellectually and developmentally disabled being thrown into a forensic facility. Once they're assured that that isn't going to happen, it's sort of like, then you guys figure it out. And isn't WellPath doing this elsewhere?
They're Human Services looks at the agency of Human Services. Human Services looks at the whole agency of Human Services, but nobody sees DOC. That's why there was no legislative committee that was really looking in at DOC policy until the mid to late 90s is when it started percolating. But there was no committee that was part of their duty. There's not. Till some folks started pushing. And then finally it ended up in institutions. That was in 2000s.
The Senate didn't get it till just a couple of years ago.
But they had it with Vince. Vince took hold of it when he was chair of institutions.
Right, but it wasn't called or that, and it wasn't as big of a deal.
And then after Vince moved on to economic development chair, then Senate Judiciary took hold of it with Senator Sears. And then when Senator Flory was chair of institutions, it went to her. And then she moved on, then it went back to Senator Sears.
Right.
And then this past year, last year, it went back to institutions. If Senator Sears was still with us, it would be the Senate Judiciary. It goes back and forth. Now, and healthcare has the Department of Mental Health. in healthcare. So so Human Services really looks at Dale, DCF. I'm not sure Department of Health, or is that,
Yep.
Department of Health,
Well, the sheriff's,
they share that with healthcare, right?
depends on the topic. It's in.
And DOC, we're the only committee.
Anecdotally, they seem to be satisfied that the different parts of AHS are talking to each other and they're singing from the same hymnal, if you will, as Connor indicated this morning.
Probably not.
And that, you know, different from what we had heard perhaps previously in previous weeks. I don't
It was
know.
definitely- I mean, they were all in the same room, right? All the commissioners were there. Jay Johnson was there. It seemed a little more cohesive then. It was more fragmented when they were coming in here individually, right? Like,
They're getting their story together.
And that coherent approach made an impression on the committee. So that coherent approach made its impression on the committee upstairs.
I appreciated that at least they were saying this is about money now. Because in here, all I heard was this is the best practice. And it is about money and it's about placement.
So what were they saying in that it was about money? Is it because they already are spending this and it's in a place, or did they refer to?
Yeah, I'd say, oh, no, not the Medicaid place. I think at least a couple of commissioners talked about the fiduciary duty to Vermonters, not to build a big new facility. And said, okay, like, you know, if you want to build a new one, get in line. We got another bunch of AHS facilities we need to build. And we got to cite it. And good luck getting a community table who's going to want to do it. So to me, that was different because I remember explicitly when they were here asking the question, is this about best practices or is this to save money? And it was best practices, right?
And none of them.
This happened
brought
here,
up- none
Kevin.
of
We
them
took this
brought up-
testimony.
None of them,
I've been saying there's been money from the beginning.
They weren't.
none of them brought up Medicaid.
No, they didn't get into the IMD stuff or anything
I
like
don't know if
that.
they really-
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know how much they would understand. Well, they should understand.
They should.
But the
Yeah.
committee is so different from the time that we worked with a state hospital and a step-down
Because
facility.
Medicaid touches so much. They've
That's what
gotta
they-
have an understanding.
I mean, it was quick this morning. You went through about like 6 witnesses in 3 hours, right? So it's a much more rapid fire pace than what we do. Yeah.
Well, I think we get into it a little deeper. And I think because we deal with actual construction and building of something, we understand the policy at a very different level. Because it's more hands-on if you're really thinking of construction and trying to site a facility. You understand the complexity of that, but then you understand how complex the policy is. And you can't go forward and figure out what type of building or where until you understand the policy. They're so intertwined, where if you're just looking at the policy, you don't know where all that's being carried out. So you're at a very different level.
Yeah, much time was spent both by the witnesses and the committee members upstairs expressing horror at the idea that these folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities would be treated either in a forensic facility or in a correctional facility or one within the other. But the concern is about that population. I know this is the third time I'm saying it now, but
And the institutionalization.
yes.
Big concern ourselves. Yes.
Anything else before we go out with you two and get out? Okay, let's go off. We'll be back here. We do have a field trip tomorrow morning, so 9 o'clock down in the lobby. Meet and figure out.